I am going to go with my sit of the week here, and I'm going with Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders is on a cold trend right now, so this is kind of a trendy sit for me here. Last 3 weeks, he had 4 targets in week 8, no catches. Week 9, 8 targets, 4 catches, and then last week, 2 targets for 2 catches in a favorable matchup. So this screams a lot of things to me. When he had 8 targets in week 9, that was the week that they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he didn't really do much with those 8 targets. 4 catches, 65 yards, your basic day, nothing fancy there. But overall, this is a player that had a lot of relevance to start the year. He had 4 weeks in a row with 10 or more fantasy points from week 3 all the way to week 6 there. So it's a guy that was red hot, and you saw a lot of usage in this offense. And now old man Sanders is just kind of fading into the dust, and you see guys kind of like Matt Breida getting goal line carries for the Bills now, and a lot of names that are just like going around that'll just shock you. But definitely Sanders is on a cold streak right now. It's not a guy that I'm particularly fond on, especially since his snap count went from 99% to 60% last week. A lot of that had to do with the score and stuff like that, but it's definitely starting to come around for that offense where Diggs is back to giving you some number one numbers and giving you those big games and making plays. And you got Dawson Knox coming back soon from his injury. I believe he had a wrist injury or something like that, but I know he is on his way back as well. So this is a guy I'm staying away from until further notice here.
I think what we saw last week was the Buffalo Bills getting back to what worked last season, and that was target Diggs and Diggs only. I think that loss to Jacksonville really, really hurt them. So they were like, all right, back to the basics, throw to the good guy. And that's Diggs. Not to say Sanders will be nothing moving forward, and maybe not even this upcoming week, especially in a very favorable matchup against Indianapolis. But I don't know. I may be. There might be a few leagues where I'm struggling and I have to put him into my flex. But I might be with you. He may be a sit for me.
All right. There we go, Donte. We lost you for a second there. Sit, Emmanuel Sanders. You have any thoughts on that one there?
I like the fact that the only positive you could say about Emmanuel Sanders is his snap count. It's always at least over 70%, except for the last game against the Jets. And you can argue game script there where they're just running the ball. But going forward, it's hard to put a lot of faith into Emmanuel Sanders for the reasons that you mentioned. Stephon Diggs finally coming into his own. He looks like he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver going down the line, especially with those favorable matchups. We got obviously this week they have Indiana, New Orleans, Tampa Bay. So they do have favorable matchups in terms of the passing game, but I just feel like with Matt Brady, like you said, Dawson Knox, all those weapons coming back, he was the prime sell high candidate. He's the definition of a sell high candidate in the beginning of the year, just because he's one of those guys that's going to have that maybe month of solid production. But once teams kind of get into their system, which we're in the middle of the season now, certain players like Emmanuel Sanders just kind of go to the wayside towards this time of the year.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree there. So there we go. Mike Williams, Emmanuel Sanders, and Donte. Who is your sit of the week in Week 11?
So I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs. To be blunt, he had six fantasy points. That's atrocious, especially for someone like Josh Jacobs, who you get in the 4th, 5th round. 7 carries, 16 yards. He had 5 catches. That's where his production came from, or lack of, I should say. The whole offense kind of took a step back with the Henry Ruggs situation. Having that deep threat kind of was able to spread the offense out for players like Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs. Leaving that, I know they got Deshaun Jackson, but he's nowhere near where he was in his prime. They are going against the Bengals, which is the sixth easiest matchup against running backs, with examples of Chubb and Aaron Jones. Chubb had 137 yards and 2 touchdowns against them, and Aaron Jones had over 100 yards. But the difference between those running backs and Jacobs is that they don't have a secondary be kind of influencing their impact. Kenyon Drake is taking all the reception work from Josh Jacobs, and that's something that you have to keep an eye on going forward, and potentially could ruin Josh Jacobs' production for the rest of the season.
I don't know, Donte. I think running backs, I feel like if they're starting and they're playing, you have to play them, especially with everybody going down. But I also think that week game last week was totally a product of them just playing from behind from the jump. I mean, I think Josh Jacobs has been probably one of the most consistent backs beforehand, ranging from 10 to 16 points and really not dipping until last week. But I don't know. I don't think I could start Josh Jacobs. I totally understand why you would, but I don't know. I'm slotting him into my starting lineups.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and I guess I'll break the divider here as Donte disconnects there. Donte, where you going? I was agreeing with you, man. But yeah, Josh Jacobs is a guy. He's definitely a guy that I it's like you said, you got to start him. Make sure it's worth who you're starting him over. If you got some of the guys that we named in here for the starts that are possible flex situations over him, I definitely would hit those this week. I could confidently say that for all of our starts. Josh Jacobs is very scary. His best fantasy week this season came from week 1 where he had 2 touchdowns, and he has not touched that mark since. Since that day, he has had 3 games of 14 fantasy points, and this is talking half-point PPR here, by the way. And in all of those games with 14 points, it came off a touchdown. When he's not finding the end zone, he's giving you 8 points, 11, and 6 in half-point PPR. So this is like a guy that had so much demand in that offense last season. And compared to this season, just with the news that's going on and everything happening, it's just a downward trend right now for the team in general. You got the Chiefs in their division that are starting to turn it around. So, like, this little period that the Raiders had this year of, like, the glory days was great. And I just don't see the Raiders getting back on track. They're struggling to give Darren Waller the ball. They're struggling all types of ways, and they do have a really tough schedule coming up. The Bengals this week are favorable, but it's still a matchup. Like I said, any of the starts we have in this video, I would definitely play above Josh Jacobs this week in my flex spot. So, but all right, yeah, those are our 3 starts and sits. We got Dan Arnold, Darnell Mooney, and Rashad Bateman. And for the sits, we have Josh Jacobs, Mike Williams, and Emmanuel Sanders. So there we go. Those are our Week 11 starts and sits. Let's hope we can get you guys in the win column this week with some good plays, and we will catch you next week.